Guys, we got a great show for you today, and you don't need to take my word for it. We're starting out big and strong with Franklin. That's right. The turtle that everybody loves is somehow in the news today. Now, this Canadian hero of it has been in nursery rhymes, children's books all day, every day. But in the US, our good friend Pete Hegseth has decided that we are going to take this lovable turtle and turn him into a cartel killing, bazooka bearing turtle. And here's the picture right here for you guys to see. And this is meant to be just, some sort of way for him to animate to himself that this is the future and we want children to be armed, excited to kill. I don't think this deserves mainstream attention. I actually couldn't care less. But what I find so interesting is the amount of effort the U.S. Defense Secretary is going to make his points, right? Everybody knows bad guys exist. At least this is something that we're taught. And we all get the idea. But to go into a character, this turtle character, to try and somehow convince young people that this is the move, I kind of find it's, a bit appalling, to be quite honest. Like, I'm not seeing the value of it. I'm not seeing the friendliness. And I'm not even a serious person all that much. But to me, this is just, at best, I would call this distasteful. It'd be similar like Big Bird or Elmo killing people. It's just not their role. Now, if you have the Power Rangers doing this sort of thing, I can kind of look the other way and say, I get it. But these are supposed to be lovely, friendly, cute animals. Come on, Pete. At least stick to the same consistencies, Like, this is how we're starting. This is what we're trying. We already have a giant epidemic of violence kids these days, where you see on YouTube all the time kids smashing kids, kids beating up kids to death for stealing a Switch. Like, there's just so much violence in the world right now. Turn this friendly turtle into something violent? Come on, like, let's try and build up society, right? Let's try and make society better. You know what I mean? This is the goal. Like, everybody wants to live in a world where it's a better society for their children, and even better society for their grandchildren. And by doing moves like these, these are just cheap parlor tricks. Like, this isn't anything. This is definitely not something that you would brag about and say, look how brilliant I am. I've come up with this turtle that is now going to be, the leader of violence for youth. Like, this is cheap, right? For lack of better words, this is completely cheap. So, super disappointing. Now, the big news that you'll find all over the place is that Carney's got a whole reshuffle going on, right? And this isn't really that big of a deal. If you ask me, the Minister of the Environment quit, so obviously Carney has to do something. He's got to fill some spots here. He's got to move people around. He now brings in Marc Miller. Now, they're Trudeau's guys, right? So he's officially bringing in someone from Trudeau's area, and he's giving him a very unique position. So Miller, as you know, served as the Minister of Immigration during Trudeau's time. Now, there is a lot of question marks around this individual, right? As we can all see, you might single-handedly be able to blame the entire economy on this individual if we're actually being honest, right? Like, if we're really trying to tell the truth, this immigration situation is what really got where we are right now. But he brings this guy back, different position now. He's not responsible for immigration. He is now being appointed as the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. Now, he comes and says, he's happy to be back. He's so excited. He likes to be busy. In that same transition now, we also have other shuffling of cabinet, right? So we also have Joel Lightbound taking on the role of the governor, and the environmental minister and climate change will be inherited by Julie Daberson. Now, what's so interesting about this is what is actually going on in Carney's political arena, right? Why all this reshuffling? Why is he making things move this way and that way? And I think it's obvious. Carney needs a team that is willing to work with him. He sees himself as the hero to save Canada. I truly believe that he believes that's going to be his role. And he needs to make sure that the people around him are going to just not do what he wants, but do what he wants, right? Let's just call a spade for once, right? It is so trivial, most of what these ministers are doing, right? Like, we all know the way it works. And if you don't know how it works, ultimately the ministers are the ones responsible, people, and what is actually going on. But the whole plan is being worked out regardless of which minister is actually in power. So the move is moving, right? The line is moving, the train is moving, It's going. So your job really is to just figure out your perfect spot and go. But where I am concerned, and a lot of people are highlighting this, and I think it's of value, and comes in is that Marc Miller is really responsible for the demise or the downfall of the Canadian economy right now. The entire immigration scene is a disaster, right? I think everyone knows this. My last video was actually exactly about this point, where there are just not enough people anymore in Canada. The economy cannot carry itself, and people are not getting their visas renewed that are even doing their PhDs and their masters and all these international students. So the huge mess. And the only way I can see this, the only way I see this making sense, and to put it in the comment section if you agree with me or you don't agree with me, but ultimately, this guy must be given another chance because he is just going to be super loyal to the Carney program. He is just going to be super obedient, toe the line, and do his best to support Carney in every way possible. Because realistically, this guy has really put Canada in a difficult situation. I don't know if everyone sees it. I don't know if it's very noticeable, but like I said, and it pains me how difficult the situation is right now, how difficult the situation may be. The housing market, everything is really on this ministry, right? This ministry brought in so many people. Canada wasn't ready for so many people. Now we don't have these people. Now there's nobody buying houses. It's just this horrible situation that we're in. And unfortunately, Marc Miller, he's got his hands in this pot. So if you want to criticize Carney, your move, then this is a really fair place where you can criticize it. This isn't a logical move. This individual does not show high level, right? This is not showing somebody that is thinking out of the box to solve problems, right? We literally have hundreds of people, hundreds of thousands of people that came to Canada, and now they're leaving by hundreds of thousands, and our cities don't know how to move right now. We have no clue what to do. So don't know what to make of this. It doesn't seem like a wise move unless Carney knows something that we don't know, and that hunch is that he's just so grateful for his second chance that he will support Carney in whatever he wants. And if that's the plan, so be it. You know, if that's the plan, great, go for it. But if that's not the plan, competency, I think right now, so there is a question mark in the plan here. There is a big question mark. Now, in more difficult news for Canada, this is what I was literally just one of the biggest companies in Canada just put out the pink slips for 1,000 employees, right? This company recently received funding from the government of $500 million, right? They got a grant or a loan from the government for $500 million, and now they're laying off 1,000 employees. And here's the problem. The tariffs that have been made on the steel industry is so difficult that this is the beginning of a whole ricochet of events, unfortunately. Like this will not be the first steel company that takes a hit. This company that's going to take a hit, this is unfortunately going to be a common theme that we're going to see right now. And that's why it's so important for everyone in the government to understand Canada needs to build everything, right? And that's why Carney's making this plan to try and boost things, because there is so much at stake for the Canadian companies, like literally every single company in Canada needs to support Canada's growth. Like it's got to be self-sufficient. It's got to go that way. And unfortunately, there is no end in sight that it ends up, right? We don't really know, and that's the concern, right? We don't know how this ends. The tariffs that the U.S. has put on Canadian steel manufacturing is insane. It's extremely difficult for steel workers now to actually compete with the U.S. We are priced out, right? We are priced out. So Canada support these companies some way, somehow. Now, of course, no one is looking for these bailouts, right? They did it fundamentally. Guess these banks all should have, let's not even discuss what the banks should be doing. But this is a disaster, right? These are huge corporations, thousands of employees, thousands of families now have 6 months notice that they're going to be laid off. And this is just a giant tragedy. But this continues to push this entire time. We need to get this economy moving. We need every single government official to understand there is no such thing as a balanced budget anymore. There is only spend, 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 only to benefit our economy. That's the trick. The economy has to benefit. We need jobs, guarantee more infrastructure to make sure Canadians have a future. It's dark, guys. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. The idea that Canada is in no way able to sustain itself is just a huge crime. When you look at all the resources, all the minerals that Canada has, it's got to be one of them in the world. Like, it actually has to be. And the fact that these things are unable state to benefit Canadians is it's got to be one of the biggest tragedies in the world right now. So, again, the unfortunate reality is anything we do right now at a bare minimum is going to take 10 years to see its fruit. And that's a scary number, because how do you do it? Like, we just built this bridge here in Windsor, Ontario, and this bridge is meant to be like, you know, the best thing since sliced bread. And it took so long to build this little bridge. And you see overseas, you see in countries like China, in 1 year, 2 year, and they're far more elaborate, far more complicated. We're behind, guys. Like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but behind. And if we don't figure this out, if we can't figure out how to get this economy moving, we will become the 51st state. We just can't survive otherwise, right? If these politicians aren't making every effort to support Canadians, to support individuals like me and you, like yourself, if these government often things to support us, the everyday person, we're in trouble. We're in deep trouble. We have not seen a calamity like this ever in our lives. And we still haven't seen it yet because the government has done such a great job of keeping us afloat. How long can we float for? That's the question. How long can we float for? Is the Canadian economy actually running on fumes? Unfortunately, it looks like somehow that it is. Now, Canada just put out these wild, incredibly great numbers on the GDP. It literally put out numbers that beat every single estimate. It actually came in at 2.6% annualized, compared with estimates of 0.5. So it killed the numbers, right? Like, it did 2 versus 0.5. So when you see numbers like that, you must be thinking to yourself, wow, this economy is so robust, so strong. Everything's incredible. No, things are not incredible. And if you look around, you see things are extremely unincredible. So where the things are really shaking up is on imports. So a lot of the on Canada's soil has decreased dramatically, falling about 2%, while exports gone up about 0.5%, while exports have gone up 0.2%. So this is showing that the exports have failed to show any reasonable improvement, right? 0.2 is that even a number, right? Let's be real here. These are decimal places. These are decimal numbers. This isn't real. And all analysts are basically saying that the economy looks extremely shaky, and as long as these tariffs are in place, Canada is in real trouble. So one of the banks, the Desjardins Group, actually said verbatim that sure, the numbers looked really good, and it looks like the train is going full speed ahead, but the train is actually running on fumes. There's no coal in this train. This train is running on nothing. It's just this to be there. Is all the coal now is gone. And they're still expecting the Bank of Canada to hold interest rates, because the Bank of Canada is always going to react extremely slow in bringing down the rates. And if you've seen my videos before, this is the thing emphasizing. We need to lower the rates. People need to feel comfortable spending money. People need to feel secure spending money, and interest rates aren't just going to jump at them as soon as they use that money. So this consumer confidence level is just so low right now. Everyone's so afraid to spend any money that they don't know what they're going to do. And the government needs to give these reassurances. People need to feel comfortable. People need to feel confident. And when you have people losing their jobs left, right, and center, this sentiment will only be more and more exaggerated. So no one's spending any money right now because nobody trusts the economy, and nobody should trust the economy, because everywhere you look, it's looking really, really bad. In this last nugget here, I kind of wonder, am I even reading this correctly? Is this actually news? Is this really what the government's doing? So Elizabeth May, the federal Green Party leader, says she believes she made a mistake in supporting the budget. And she goes, and I really can't be making this up at this point. She kind of says that true. She says, I don't know if the prime minister lied, but I think he needs to consider what his word means when his word was given. He obviously thought that getting a deal with Daniel Smith was more important than his word. Now, I get Elizabeth May is getting at, right? She's very upset because they want to kind of, go past the environment a little bit. They kind of, use, so what she's so upset about is they have this technology called CCUS. And CCUS is basically they're trying to get this oxygen into the ground, and this oxygen helps get more oil out of the ground. But of course, once you put this oxygen into the ground, it stays in there, potentially disrupts the soil, causes a bit of headache for a lot of individuals, I would imagine, right? That's kind of the concern here. But you're able to take out much more oil much faster. Survive or the environment. This is constantly faced these days. And, if Carney and his people did lie to Elizabeth, I would actually say it's probably wrong to do that. Like, I think you should never need to be dishonest, right? I'm being honest and being truthful, right? Like, I do believe in God, and I do believe that being honest is the right thing to do. But with that being said, I actually also believe that every other Canadian needs to be honest as well. And a project like this will only help the Canadian economy. And that's really where the struggle is that why do people not believe the situation as dire as it is? Why are people so convinced that this isn't really a big deal? We don't need to move so fast. We are pretty comfortable right now. What's the worst thing that can happen? I believe a lot of these politicians just don't get how severe the situation is. Like I have said countless times, I'm all for the environment. I love trees. I love nature. I love animals. I love it all. These are all God's creation, and you got to take note and take stock of it and count your blessings. That goes without saying. God gave you the oil. God gave you the minerals. God gave you all these things. Pull yourself up to be strong. So if you're not gonna take the benefit, then do you really deserve it? Right? Like, this is kind of the question everybody's got to ask themselves. I know it'd be so great if we could have polar bears walking the street and all the salmon thanking us for how great we are and all the fresh water in the world. But we're in a precarious state right now, guys. I don't want to sound rude, and I know a lot of people have been on my pod that I have no idea what I'm talking about and anything else. Unless you know how to hunt and build a house out of clay and chop down trees to make your own home and build your own fire, don't think you know what you're talking about. If they're laying off thousands of people in the steel industry, which is one of Canada's biggest industries, you understand? This is one of Canada's biggest industries. If they're laying off and the steel industry is dying in Canada, all that's left is wood. Wood, guys. Wood. So the industry is drying up. The tariffs are, in fact, making it very difficult for Canada. Now, sure, we have soybeans and wheat and blah, 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 blah. I know. But I'm trying to make up that if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't really hone in on our actual priorities, what's actually important for today's survival, what is important, there is no tomorrow for Canada. You might as well just let Donald Trump take over Canada now. I think that's what I want. But I'm saying somebody's got to be honest with themselves. And if we're not going to actually do it ourselves, then you know what? Let's just give it to them, and then we can keep our environment. It's because we don't need to do anything anymore. America already set it all up. They already have the refineries, and they have the steel, and they have all these different... So they're good. We could keep the environment. But I really feel it's one or the other. And I'm not trying to paint this extremely dark picture where the end of the world is here and it's all gloom. But I believe there is an unreasonable amount of just ignorance on this subject. I feel that people really don't know what they're talking about. And me more than anyone else, I got kids. I want them to have grandkids. I want them to have a beautiful life here. I want it all. I want to feed them, to survive. I want them to have a career. I want them to enjoy everything that I've been able. But that won't happen in this current situation. Canada has been left to be exactly the same for decades at end. Decades and decades and decades and decades. There's been very little improvement to Canada. You can see that. You just go anywhere and roads have been widened for decades. You go anywhere and highways have been the same for years. Telephone, years. Everything's the same. Can you imagine that we're only now contemplating of having a high-speed rail system in Canada? It's a contemplation. Hasn't even happened yet. And you go to any modern day country. You even go to countries like Saudi Arabia, and they have high-speed rail. So any country that's investing in themselves, create these sort of infrastructures, use their own steel, use their own resources to build all these incredible things. And we haven't built anything of value in so long to help boost our economy and invest in our economy. Small little projects here and there to make it look like our tax money is doing things. Sure. But there are hospitals and medical schools that have only been built recently. And there is a population that is aging and getting old and needing more and more resources. And very little has been done. So I think all of us, as Canadians, as people of conscience, of people that care about we need to wake up. See it for what it is. Hold these politicians. Be aware. Don't let them separate us on these colors and on these ideas and on these theories. We all want one thing. We all want prosperity. We all want to feel cared for. We all want a good deal. We're all the same. We really, really are. My complexion may be a little bit different than yours. My hair might be a little bit different than yours. What I like might be a little bit different than yours. But the bottom line is that we all want Canada to succeed. We all want our grandchildren to inherit something even greater than what we had. So let's do it. Let's prioritize what actually makes a difference for Canada. Not fall into these games of political intrigue. Not fall into these traps of, oh, I have this and you have that. And no. Let's make it real simple. Canada needs to survive. We don't want to wait outside for the government to give us loaves of bread. We don't want a depression. We want the government to do everything in its power to improve our lives. And if they can't do that, then we need to be very clear and very vocal of how we see Canada should go. Because I don't think right now, typical politics and the normal games that they play in the House of Commons at this point, the deck is stacked against us and we're acting as if it's 1999.